Cape Town forever. Cape Town forever.
Today we are joined by Vincent Ridon, founder of the Sommeliers Academy in South Africa and the 2023 Sommelier of the Year. Join us as we delve into JV's journey from France to South Africa, exploring his passion for Cape Town's wine industry and the boundless opportunities awaiting in its winelands. Let's find out why JV is so invested in the local wines of Cape Town. All right, so we're sitting here with Jean-Vincent Ridon. This is Cape Town Forever. We are having a chat with him. He is one of South Africa, if not South Africa's best sommeliers.
I'm officially the best sommelier of South Africa 2023, so I got the title for 2 years.
There we go. 2 years. That's a nice
every
long
2
time.
years.
Awesome. All right. Jean-Vincent, thank you for being here with us. So let's get right into it. You know, when we spoke before, the moment I asked you questions, your knowledge and your passion just oozed out of everything you just said, and that's a great thing. That's something that someone in the wine industry really needs to make an impact. So what sparked the passion for you? Where did it all start?
Where the passion... I mean, I grew up in a wine environment. My grandfather was working for the largest wine merchant of France, but was not a producer. He was actually in charge of installing the new shops and kind of an engineer, architect person, but with a love of wine. And he comes from the region of Sancerre in the Loire Valley. So I always had the privilege to grow up with great wines. My father was a chef, so I grew up in an environment where good food and good wine were always together. And I think the passion went beside the great wines you have as a kid, because in France it was legal. We're not American. It's when I was in America, I realized that what I believed that my culture was for granted, culture of wine and being French and we can all have wine. I realized suddenly first I couldn't buy wine because I was not 21, and that there was so much to be done to promoting the French culture of wine or the culture of wine in general, that I said, you know, it could be a great way to use my family roots and my little knowledge by learning more and make it, see if I can make it from a passion to make it a job.
That's great. It's always great to be turning a passion to a job, because as my dad would always say, then the money automatically will come to you and all the good friends.
I don't know, my dad had a different opinion. He had a restaurant, so he believed that hiring his son to be the sommelier would be a cheaper employee. So that's why he pushed me into that passion.
That's the other thing my dad would say too, don't worry. Can you describe the most memorable wine tasting experience that influenced your perspective on wines, like in the history of you doing this?
Yeah, I had the chance to meet many famous people that had so much passion that it rubs on you. But with Robert Parker, I had the chance to taste with him in the late 90s. And through a common contact, I've been invited in Washington in the year 2000 to taste wines from the century before, meaning from the 19th century. Wines from 1805 to 1899. And so I flew to Washington just for that. Also, I was on a limited budget. I was already living in South Africa then. But having these time capsules of wine when we had very little knowledge of winemaking, where everything was very empiristic, and taste wine, some of them were dead, but many were just mind-blowing. They had life. They were still passion to share. And that was the best tasting I ever had.
With that experience, let's talk about Cape Town and the trends emerging on this side. You know, if you could encompass what you've understood from the past and going to the future, where do you see Cape Town's position in the world of wine?
Cape Town's position in the world of wine. That's the reason why I came to South Africa in '96 to make my first wine, and then started my own brand in '97. I've been winemaker in South Africa until last year. So combining with my harvest in France, my harvest in California, my harvest in Turkey, And in South Africa, probably I've made like 50 harvests, which is not bad for someone 55. Uh, and Cape Town, when I arrived in '96, or the wine land in general, everything had to be redone, rediscovered. New cultivars, top of the quota, you could plant where you want, what you wanted. And for a Frenchman that has been limited by regulation for so long, having the chance to be the first to do Fourmine, to be the first to do Grenache, to be one of the first to do Malbec or straw wine or ice vine or things like that, it was exciting. It was like a huge turn on, and because I knew from history that South Africa had been producing great wines from the Vin de Constance and wines from the past, it's always a guarantee that if great wines been made in the past with zero technology, now we understand winemaking better, we could really optimize the quality of the terroir and therefore make great wine. So the potential is here. The potential has been exciting, and since the late '90s, it's been a huge boom. And the Platter's Wine Guide was that thin when I'm in the country. Now I cannot fit it in my back pocket anymore. And seeing cultivars over the last years, we had now Nero d'Avola, we had Assyrtiko, we had Cunoise. We try cultivars that are the answer for global warming and maybe the future of South Africa. You know, look at Burgundy. It took 15 centuries to be sure that Pinot Noir was home there. Probably at the beginning, the Romans have been planting many other cultivars, but only Pinot Noir survived, and that was a sign. In South Africa, we don't know, but now we talk about Chenin because we're excited to be the largest producer in the world. Maybe it will be Zinfandel, maybe it will be Nero d'Avola, maybe it will be, I don't know. Nobody knows. And the global warming is changing so many things.
Yes,
so many
the
parameters.
changing of the climate and all that will change.
Yes, changing of the climate. Global warming, it's a generic name, but yes, the climate change.
Yeah.
We've seen the rain last year, we've seen the storm this winter. In France, I have vineyards in Catalonia, in the north of Spain. In the last 2 years, we had the equivalent of 3 months of rain only. And that was one of the largest wine production region in France and Spain. Vines are dying. So yes, things are changing, and we have to rethink the way we prune, the way we plant, the way we manage our vineyards. But it's exciting.
So, given all that information and given all the changing that happens, how do you stay informed on trends and where things are going with the way they prepare wine, the styles and all that? How do you? I mean, obviously we have the internet, but do you do a lot of traveling, right?
I try to always position myself in the center of the game. Being a sommelier, I'm between the producers and the client, but I'm a producer myself. I'm a client myself, and internet is important. But I have the chance to travel often. I still compete as a sommelier overseas. I still go to trade fairs and meetings of winemakers because I'm in charge of the education and the exams of sommelier around the world now. Like I'm going to be in Portugal in April. I'm going to be in France in February. I'm traveling usually 7 or 8 times a year outside the country, most of the time in one producing region. But being in touch with the wine producing region doesn't give you the trends. The trends happen in London, happens in New York. It's the new consumers who make the trend more than the decision of the winemakers. Yes.
Okay, great. What are the misconceptions or that the things people misunderstand about wine that you usually come across, and how do you? I wouldn't say educate them, but how do you point them in the right direction on when they have wine, with you, or maybe around you as a sommelier?
I think it's my duty is not to put them in a specific direction. I just need to teach them to listen to what they like. Wine is a personal journey. Wine is a personal experience, and it means very often we read wine gurus, wine journalists, top sommeliers, and and you can read Robert Parker, who was one of the guys that expressed the taste of wine with a more informal language. But still, it doesn't make you relate to it. What I can tell people in their own journey is don't listen to what people say, but remember what you really like. Not necessarily why you like it, but just like it, and make your own taste. It's the taste of wine is an evolution, and we all kind of go through the same journey. If you have someone that never drank wine and you arrive with a Chateau Cheval Blanc 1947, he'll test it, he'll spit it, and look at you that, man, this wine is dead. This wine is sour, this wine is not good. It's an acquired taste. We all started with sweet, fruity red wine. As a kid, I remember the first Muscat I tasted. It was sweet, it reminded me the grapes, the peaches, the honey. So as a kid, I related to it. Then I got quickly bored with it, and then I went to fruity red wine, even if it was slightly sweet too. Then on a drier white wine, very fruity, like Gewürztraminer, and over the years, I ended up discovering the beauty of complexity, of multi-layers, of control oxidation. And now I love sherry, vin jaune, and wines that I would probably have disliked so much if I first used them as an entry door to the world of wine. So I can see some people, because they read that the wine you must like, and they taste this very complex wine, but they're not ready. I can see they not really take joy and pleasure. They talk about it, they analyze the wine, but wine is, must bring a big smile on your face. Then you know the wine is good. That's what it's made for. And that's why as sommelier, we need to give an experience. Nobody wants to listen to us talking about the age of the winemaker, the name of the dog, what type of oak, the pH. Nobody cares. But they will remember if they got what we call the banana smile, then it's a good one.
Okay, awesome, man. So speaking of banana smile, obviously wine goes very well with food. How important do you think food and wine pairings are? And if you could, if you had to go to heaven right now, and there was a table waiting for you of food and wine pairings, what would you see?
I don't want to go to heaven now. I'm French, therefore, for the majority of French, we relate ourselves to the Latin culture, Mediterranean culture, Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, Greek, Lebanese, North African. And for French people, we usually never drink outside meals. And in my village, in the Roussillon, where I got my vineyards in France, when we see someone with a glass of red wine at the bar at 4 p.m, it's either an alcoholic or an English. And we forget that we're just out of lunch and we had 10 bottles, the four of us, and we're slightly high. But it was with food, and wine is considered as part of the food, so we consider it not like an alcohol. By law in France, you won't be fired for drinking, you'll be fired for drinking alcohol during job, unless it's wine, cider, or beer. Then it's allowed. So
Sounds good.
The wine being consumed during lunches, it's always made to go with food, and very often new drinkers find European wines, Italian, Spanish, French, Greek, fairly austere, fairly lack of fruit, a bit too acid, because they're made to go with food. So they usually prefer wines which are rounder, riper, easier, classic Sauvignon Blanc, putting ice cube in it, and you can drink it with nothing else. But if you get food with them, they will collapse. They will make a very unpleasant pairing. So wine is food. Wine is a food culture. I got that from my grandmother. We all been taught to cook, and we all been taught to what wine as a kid should go with what. So I'm a strong advocate of always having food and wine together. And the misconception people have is, I want the ideal food pairing. there's nothing as such. I love food pairing. I've been publishing and writing a book called A Passion for Pairing, been awarded even in Europe. But in it, it's important to realize there are 1,000 good pairing for one dish or for one wine. They are, the bad pairing are easily identifiable, and that's what we try to avoid. But we have many ways to look that we often base ourselves on traditions. That's regional ways. It's when you look at Italian sparkling sweet wines like Lambrusco, you don't see it fit in Italian cuisine. But when you got that with spaghetti bolognese, then suddenly everything makes sense. Suddenly the sweetness is swallowed by the sweetness of the pasta, the acidity, everything goes well together. And it goes beyond wine. It's if you're Irish and you're used to Guinness, the first time I've been told, no, in Ireland, they got oysters and Guinness. And I said, no, you cannot get oysters and Guinness. I'm a guy that goes Riesling and Chablis and Champagne with oysters. And I tried, and it worked. It was the first when I tasted sake. As a Frenchman, it was like 200% exotic. But it works with something very unusual. So yes, I want to guide people into something, their own journey in food and wine too. You don't like spicy food, you don't go in spicy food. You don't have hot food, you don't like oysters. Don't try. Yes, you should try, but don't force yourself. Just use the element you like and learn to identify what you eat. And that's very often a major problem in South Africa is the lack of culture in terms of depth of food. We all grew up with Wimpy's or Spur, so eventually it's a strong limitation of our official food judges in South Africa too. That's why there's so many controversy around the restaurant judging. It's because maybe some of the judges only grew up with Wimpy's and lacked the diversity. That's the beauty of the Mediterranean culture, is we all been influenced by the other. And why French cuisine or Italian cuisine or Spanish cuisine is so diverse, or Greek? Because we're poor countries, and we've been at war most of our history. We've been invaded so many times. So the cattle, the beef, was taken by the winners. That's why we learn how to use mushrooms, snails, frog legs, squid, whatever we could find, suddenly became a source of food. And we wanted, if you wanted it, you had to be inventive to eat a snail, so you create recipes that goes with them, and then you need a wine that goes with them. And in South Africa, when you are rich in South Africa, you always go for the beef fillet. It's completely tasteless, but that's a social status. But food pairing with that is a bit limited too. So I'm trying to push the people on food pairing onto analyzing the food they have, what is the most important. When you look at back labels of wines, you see, goes well with pizza and pasta, just because the marketing department said that most people eat pizza and pasta or chicken. But like chicken, what's the most important is the sauce with it, or the veggies with it, or the starch with it. Because chicken is fairly tasteless and will go with almost any wine. But if you got a shakalaka with it, then that's what's important in the dish, not the chicken.
Yeah.
And once you understand that, then you stop thinking red wine with cheese, red wine with meat, and white wine with fish.
I really like the comparisons you made there. And yes, the whole making use of the survival instinct and being creative. Never thought of that way. Okay, so the last question. As a sommelier, what advice would you give to individuals that are looking to expand their knowledge and the appreciation of wines, bearing in mind that wine is subjective? Also, if you want to inspire future sommeliers, what would you say to them as well?
There's a very strong conflict of interest here because I own the Sommelier Academy with a few friends of mine, and I'm the main teacher there. So I said, come to Sommelier Academy and learn about becoming a sommelier or a wine lover. I don't want to create wine professional. I want to, if you're a good wine lover, then you might become a wine professional. You need to understand the basics. You need to taste with an open mind, and it's always something in the education of wine when you take courses. Is after the first course you learn so much. Finally I understand. Finally I know. Then the second course, wow, I'm super good. At the third course, I'm the guru among my friends. And then you reach the level 4, and then you learn you know nothing. And because I still work a lot in education, but I'm putting myself in the heat every year. I go for exams, I go for competition. I know that if I stop learning, I'm taking at least 1 hour per day to learn more about wine. It's my job. It's not, I try to keep it fun. For most people, it must stay fun. So they need to understand where the wine comes from and why people live in that region, what do they eat in that region. That's the reason why they make wine like that. And for sommelier, they just need to learn to listen to the client. We're not here to dictate the taste to anyone. You need to listen who is the client, what he likes, what he's been drinking before, what he eats before you start even suggesting anything. You never know who your client is. It might be me. Now, one evening on the floor at Aubergine in Cape Town, I had this Frenchman, and he spoke fairly arrogantly about Bordeaux, and I don't really like the people of Bordeaux, so I gave him my vision of how arrogant Bordeaux people are, and how we talk a lot about wine, but they never offer a glass of wine, and how they kill their own market. Until at the end he introduced himself. He was the head teacher at the University of Bordeaux in winemaking, and the owner of a very famous chateau estate. We became friends after that because it's unusual to tell the truth. Luckily, I could recover the situation, but it's listen to the client, stay humble. They're not here for you. They're here for their experience. As a young sommelier, I probably been very arrogant, and I probably tried to convince that I had the best taste, so you must follow my taste. I think you need to learn to listen to your client and know what they like and try to make their experience better. That's all.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for joining us and for all your advice and all your wine experience stories. It's been fantastic listening to you. Thank you for joining Cape Town Forever. We hope to see you on the big stages again. I'm sure we will. And next time you have a glass of wine, have one with us.
Yeah.
And merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Cape Town forever. Cape Town forever.